The 195 nations of the world either decided how to save the world Friday or spent a lot of money to write a meaningless brochure. This is SkyWatchTV for Monday, December 14th, 2015. I'm Derek Gilbert. The Paris climate talks ended Friday with an agreement of sorts, but climate change true believers, such as retired NASA climatologist Dr. James Hansen, aren't very happy about it. While the deal acknowledges that the maximum temperature increase that the world can sustain is an average of 2 degrees Celsius, everybody agreed that we should actually shoot for 1.5 degrees Celsius temperature increase and change our lifestyles accordingly. But as one global warming believer put it rather diplomatically, the agreement is largely free of specific emissions numbers, targets, monetary commitments, and penalties for noncompliance. In other words, there are no concrete plans to reach these carbon emissions goals and no penalties that would force anyone to comply. So for now, this kicks the can down the road. It really isn't going to change the way we live in any meaningful way. But we're going to continue to watch this because, as we've said before on this program, technocrats will keep beating this drum until they convince enough people in the world that the threat of global warming is real enough to convince us that we need to let them tell us how to live our lives, everything from setting our thermostat to how we get to work. You see, carbon emissions, energy consumption really affects every aspect of human life, possibly even how many children future generations will be allowed. And there's speculation that Pope Francis, who hailed the agreement in his Sunday address, might soften the Roman Catholic position on birth control. Cardinal Peter Turkson made that comment in an interview over the weekend. He said that the change might be suggested by the Vatican to fight water and food shortages, which are blamed perhaps on climate change. But Cardinal Turkson did say that this would not include any change in the Vatican's position on things like birth control pills. Now, by the way, the Vatican hosted a multi-million-dollar light show last week on St. Peter's Basilica. This was last Tuesday night. It capped off the official opening of the Pope's Year of Mercy. Many Catholics are upset about this, upset that the Pope allowed St. Peter's to be used as the backdrop for an overtly pro-climate change propaganda piece. The light show, which admittedly was beautiful, featured images of species and habitats that might be endangered by global warming, except that the show left out the most endangered form of life on planet Earth, which is the unborn child. In the Middle East, a Russian destroyer fired warning shots at a Turkish fishing boat in the Aegean Sea to avoid a collision. The two ships came within a third of a mile of one another early Sunday morning. The military attaché at the Turkish embassy in Moscow was summoned by the Russian Defense Ministry for an explanation of the incident. Things have been tense between the two nations ever since those Turkish F-16s shot down a Russian Su-24 fighter bomber over Syria on November 24th. Well, now an American defense analyst who was involved in developing the F-16 says he believes the Turks ambushed the Russian plane. The analyst points out that the F-16, prior to the confrontation, weren't flying at an altitude that is typical of a routine patrol. Normally, they would fly between 20 and 30,000 feet to conserve fuel. These planes were flying low, below 8,000 feet, which, not coincidentally, he says, was below the coverage of the Russian and Syrian radar units in that region. Now, if this information is making its way to the major media, which is where I get all of my stuff, I don't have any secret sources, you can bet that Russian military officials in Moscow are fully aware of this. Those Turkish troops that we've been telling you about still in northern Iraq, in spite of the deadline that has come and gone set by the Iraqi prime minister. Demonstrations against the presence of those soldiers took place in a number of Iraqi cities over the weekend. The most influential Shia religious leader in Iraq, Ayatollah Ali Sistani, condemned the presence of those Turkish soldiers. However, some Sunni politicians in Baghdad claimed that the protests were more about Shia leaders rallying their base than about actual objections to the presence of the Turkish troops. The Kurdistan regional government repeated Turkey's claim that the government in Baghdad actually invited the Turkish soldiers to set up camp at that base near Mosul. Turkey's President Erdogan says his country doesn't have the luxury of waiting for the Iraqi government to do something about what he sees as threats to Turkey's national security. Erdogan also tried to justify the presence of those troops in Iraq by calling them part of the anti-ISIS coalition, and apparently Turkish officials are now talking to their counterparts in the United States and the United Kingdom to make that official. Meanwhile, late last week, troops from Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and the United Arab Emirates captured a key island at the south end of the Red Sea. This is part of the ongoing civil war in Yemen. The island had been captured by Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi rebels in September of 2014. It's in the middle of a channel that connects the Indian Ocean to the Red Sea. It's the world's fourth busiest choke point for international oil tanker shipments. Iranian forces had converted the island into an arms depot to keep the rebels in Yemen supplied with weapons against the Arab coalition, and to expand Iran's influence in the nations of Eritrea and Ethiopia on the west side of the Red Sea. Apparently, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE decided they couldn't wait any longer to invade the island and take it away from the Iranian-backed rebels. Last month, Iran received permission from the nation of Djibouti to build an air and sea base there. Now, Djibouti sits on the opposite side of the strait that we're talking about, the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. Having Iran on both sides of that strait, in Yemen and in Djibouti, and on the island, smack in the middle of the shipping lanes, was unacceptable. Not only does much of the world's oil pass through that point, but traffic headed to the Suez Canal and the Mediterranean Sea must pass through that channel, as well as shipping traffic headed from China to the southern Israel port of Eilat. So because of that, you can be sure that there were other governments providing quiet assistance behind the scenes to the Arab forces taking that island. And by the way, the main source of income for the government of Djibouti is renting out real estate to foreign governments to set up military bases. The United States has a military base at Djibouti, as does France. They've been there for a while. China is in the process of setting up its base, and of course, again, Iran just getting permission to set up shop there as well. Now, sometimes when something weird happens, you take notice of it and then just move on. When the same kind of weirdness happens again, it's possibly a coincidence, although I'm not much of a coincidence theorist. But when the same kind of weird thing happens over and over again, say 6 times within a span of a week, perhaps it's time to take notice of a trend. And that is what's happening here in the state of Missouri. Now, of course, if you're a liberal, perhaps there's nothing to see there, because actually seeing something would be evidence that you might be a bigot. In Missouri, there have been a string of bulk cell phone purchases over the past week. About 150 prepaid cell phones purchased at Walmart stores in half a dozen different cities: Columbia, Jefferson City, Macon, which is in north central Missouri, Lebanon, which is closer to our location here, and then down in the southeast corner, Jackson and Cape Girardeau. In each case, a couple of young men walked in and paid cash for multiple cell phones. Now, Walmart store policy is to only allow 2 of these prepaid phones to be sold at a time. These so-called burner phones can be used by people who don't want their movements to be tracked. They're often used by, say, drug dealers. Make one phone call, throw the phone away. That's why they're called burners. They can also be used as detonators on improvised explosive devices, IEDs. When you couple this string of cell phone purchases with the theft of dozens of propane tanks from multiple locations around Kansas City in recent days, Independence and Lee's Summit, Missouri, now you attract the attention of the FBI. Now, instead of being concerned that this might be preparation for something bad to happen, one liberal website posted this headline. Yes, in their eyes, this is just evidence that the FBI is rounding up Muslims simply because they want to buy cell phones. Now, I will say this: it's not likely that a really good terrorist would walk into a Walmart store at 4 in the morning, as was the case in one of these incidents, and pay cash for 5 dozen prepaid cell phones, especially because the store only allows 2 to be purchased at a time they were rung up as 30 separate transactions. That's liable to get somebody's attention, and in most of these cases, police were notified. So again, not likely that a terrorist would attract that much attention prior to some sort of violent attack. But I'm not so naive that I assume that this type of behavior is normal either. Authorities in Macon, Missouri, where one of the purchases took place, said Friday that the phones were actually purchased by a cell phone trafficking ring. A cell phone trafficking ring. Young men who buy up bulk cell phones and then resell them for a profit. Now, my question is, to whom? They're paying retail price and marking it up from there. Are they really going to find customers who don't know that they could buy the same phone cheaper at the local Walmart, Dollar General, Casey's General Store, Pilot Truck Stop, Love's Truck, any gas station or truck stop in America? Really? Really? In 2006, Doug Hagman of the Hagman and Hagman Report on Blog Talk Radio was one of the first to report the case of several young men from the Detroit area who were arrested driving a van with 1,000 prepaid cell phones in the back of the van that they purchased at Walmart stores in Texas. The story these young men gave police was that they were going to resell them for a profit. Again, to whom? FBI investigated and actually said, nothing to see here. And apparently, that's what we're being told here in the state of Missouri. Now, I don't share this story to try to ramp up fear because we are not given a spirit of fear. And again, there's good reason to believe that this is not the work of a really good terrorist organization. But be prepared. There is nothing unbiblical about being alert and prepared. If you missed last Tuesday's SkyWatch TV, the interview with John McTernan and Donna Howell, you missed, I think, something that would really be a blessing to you. That the program is now available on the SkyWatch TV channels on Roku and on YouTube. In fact, if you are a subscriber to the SkyWatch TV channel on Roku, by the time you see this, there will be a second web-only interview with John McTernan, the author of When Jesus Sets You Free, You Are Free Indeed. Donna Howell, the author of Redeemed, Unredeemable. Do check those out. The love of God, forgiveness, the healing available to us as believers in Jesus Christ is really beyond our comprehension. This week, we discuss one of the great mysteries of the 20th century in the United States, and that is the Georgia Guidestones. They've been called America's Stonehenge. And we talk with Chris Pinto, the producer of a new documentary film, Dark Clouds Over Elberton. What is the message of the Georgia Guidestones, and who was the mysterious R.C. Christian who commissioned those stones to be constructed? SkyWatch TV airs Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's UTC-5 on the Christian Television Network. That's DirecTV Channel 376, Dish Network Channel 267, and the Glory Star Satellite Channel 117. 2016 promises to be a very interesting year, and the 2016 Rocky Mountain International Prophecy Conference, therefore, should be a real interesting gathering. 24 of the top speakers in the world on Bible prophecy and geopolitics, but registration is closing fast. It's limited to the first 1,000 people, and at last check, we were already 3/4 sold out. If you'd like information or to register for the conference, July 14th through the 17th at the Marriott in Pikes Peak, Colorado Springs, Colorado, log on to prophecywatchers.com. And you can log on to these places on the interwebs where I hang out, Twitter, Facebook, and my website. And if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please send those to dgilbert@skywatchtv.com. Thank you for watching. While we keep watch, I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is SkyWatch TV. The holidays are on us, and this Christmas, SkyWatch TV can help you give the gift of preparedness to the ones you love.
How better to show your love to your family than to buy something that will help them when their electricity goes out, when everything fails, and we all know that there's a possibility of that happening. This is the time to buy, because if you go to our store, you'll find the Buy This, Get That Free special. And trust me, the Buy This items, they're already discounted, so you're going to save money on that. And you get a wonderful item, in addition, free.
That's right. Go to skywatchtvstore.com and look for the Christmas specials. Now, as a news junkie, I'm really excited about some of the crank radios. When times get tough and you need to know what's going on.
Are they just for cranks?
Well, it's perfect for me then, because you can, without batteries, be able to find out exactly what's going on. They're crank radios, including a two-way radio, so you can communicate with friends and family in an emergency.
I think that's incredible. We've got a hand crank radio at home that we use a lot. I hope it never happens, but
Right.
more than likely the day is going to come. Even if it's just a power outage from a storm, you're going to need something to hear the weather on. We've got seed kits,
Yes.
emergency ration kits, Berkey water filters. I mean, it's all the things you wanted to get for prepping and you wanted to save money, or you want to give to your family
Yeah.
members. Now's the time to buy.
And many of those seed kits are heirloom seeds, the kind of things that you don't typically get when you go to the store to buy seeds. Seeds that you can basically, when the plant ripens, you can save some of those seeds and plant them again next
You
year.
can. It's almost a buy once, have them forever sort of thing if you just save from year to year. And they're non-GMO.
Exactly. Plenty of other items in the store, including more information, books that tell you about how to prepare and plan for times that are troublesome. And certainly that would describe the age we're living in right now.
Buy this, get that free. You gotta love it.
Yep. Give the gift of preparedness this holiday season. SkyWatch TV, SkyWatchTVstore.com. And again, Merry Christmas from SkyWatch TV.